concussion coming off that thing standing right here. Shooting him all right. Oh, that's fun. Okay, ready?
Look at that cloud of dust.
I know, isn't that beautiful? Okay. It's fun though, isn't it?
Yeah.
For preparation and fun, I like to occasionally place myself in the shoes of the enemy. For example, if I were a burglar entering the house of my prey, there are few things I would hate to see more than a semi-auto shotgun. It ranks right up there with Twilight series memorabilia and Velociraptors for me. All just terrifying. Honestly though, a hail of 5 to 20 rounds of double-aught buck would be enough to make any hardened criminal wish they'd worn their brown pants. Shotguns in general are considered by many to be the ultimate choice for home defense, and a reliable semi-auto is definitely worth considering. Cue the Saiga-12. This has been one of the staples for tactical shotgun enthusiasts everywhere. It's the Barbie doll of 12 gauges, with everyone looking for the next accessory to catch the eye and garner respect. I've tried many of the offerings over the years, and I believe I've finally found a configuration that will stick, at least for the time being. I am fickle after all with my guns. This right here is the Saiga-12 Kushnapup stock. I settled on the Kushnapup for two primary reasons: weight and form factor. Rare is the person that wants to keep their Saiga-12 in its factory sporterized configuration. It's boring and it lacks any of the modern touches of today's offerings. My very first Saiga-12 I outfitted with an adjustable stock and a very nice chaos rail, among a bunch of other internal and minor upgrades. Along with these, you'll probably also want to convert your Saiga, which involves moving the trigger group forward to where it's supposed to be. That really helps to give you that traditional length of pull and allow the pistol grip to be attached directly to the receiver instead of a stock of unknown integrity. That Saiga shot great, it was buckets of fun, but my support arm definitely felt the extra weight from that quad rail, and transitioning targets quickly was certainly slowed. Yeah, those rails do add a lot to your firearm, but the weight takes a toll. Then you add optics and a light, and it only exacerbates the problem. Beyond the weight, I really wanted to shrink the overall size, just bringing that mass closer to my body, and make maneuvering in tight places like my home much more manageable. In the Kushnapup stock, the difference is palpable. There's no longer that front-end weight fatigue, and having so much power in such a compact form just brings out my boy-like enthusiasm. Then the new look, it's something to behold. Yeah, it's become commonplace to run into guns that look like they came straight out of Halo or Starship Troopers. The proliferation of Bullpup rifles has a large part in this. Stick something on a Bullpup stock, and your once tame sporting rifle becomes an alien-slaying future weapon. And while I like the aesthetics of the Kushnapup, I was ultimately going for function, and this delivered. Now, your original iron sights won't be an option with this stock. Good riddance, they sucked anyway. You're also going to need to add some type of rail to mount your optic of choice. I've used Carolina Shooter Supply for a long time because they have a lot of great options. One allows you to just replace that rear sight. It adds a short little rail, nice and simple. I opted for the long Ultimac rail though. It gives you a lot more space, but you are going to need to drill and tap to install it. Also, as you can see at the 3 and 9 o'clock positions, I threw on a pair of those MacLeod polymer rails. Those allow me to attach a light and keep weight at a minimum. It was quick and simple. I just drilled right into the stock and installed them. I also Duracoated almost everything on this shotgun in either FDE or OD green. I topped it off with a Burst Fastfire 3 and wrapped around a couple lizard grips for unnecessary but pleasant comfort. On the rear, I added the SGM butt recoil pad, and combined with the Tromix mini monster brake that I put on, makes for a truly soft shooter. It keeps the fun from ending prematurely from that sore shoulder I sometimes get shooting shotguns. Even my recoil-sensitive wife can appreciate shooting low brass out of this thing. Next, because I'm a bit of a snob when it comes to fast reloads, I decided to add a magwell. This took a little bit more drilling and tapping and modification of all my magazines, but now I can avoid the AK rock and lock reload, and even better, my mag's drop free. The downside is I could no longer use my drum magazines, rendering them completely useless. Goodbye 20 rounds. The stick mags work great, but the 12 rounders do look a little ridiculous with their absurd length. Also, with the Kushnapup, you're going to be limited in what safety levers you can use. And an extended mag release is really not an option at all with it. During installation, it's recommended that you remove the tang from your shotgun. Otherwise, it's going to stick out the back a considerable amount. If you can't live with that permanent modification, you might be able to jimmy rig some kind of a pad. I just cut mine off, and after a little bit of Dremel work inside of the Kushnapup stock, the Saiga fit perfectly. It will be relatively painless if you've done any amateur firearm finagling of your own. If not, I'd go ahead and send it into a gunsmith and make sure it's done right. The biggest drawback of Bullpups, for most shooters that is the terrible triggers. Well, the Kushnapup Saiga-12, it's just as bad. Probably worse than any Bullpup I've fired, to be honest. The trigger rod pulling on that already subpar trigger make for a disaster. The pull is extremely heavy, mushy, and long. The reset's slow. I mean, granted I didn't have the G2 trigger to start, and that would probably be better. So I went ahead and modified the trigger myself. Again, pulling out the Dremel for some careful work, I was able to massage it until buttery smooth and greatly reduced the pull weight. Still inside this Kushnapup stock, it wasn't great, although vastly improved. Overall now the trigger's more than serviceable for what I see as a combat shotgun. Now I get the impression that the Kushnapup is going to be very durable. It doesn't feel flimsy or seem to have any vulnerable spots. Actually, I take that back. There is one thing that is definitely subpar, and that's the sling attachment points. Man, these things suck. The front comes out far too easily if you ever take the stock apart. As you can see, the attachment point just sheared right off. The rear is kind of flimsy, and I proved that in a recent run. Luckily, I got my hand out and grabbed the gun before it fell to the ground, but it definitely made for an interesting finish. I would greatly prefer to see flush cups molded into the stock. That would be much more secure in my opinion, and I'd prefer them for their ease of use. I'll also note that if you want to field strip your Saiga, it's going to be tough. You will have to literally take the stock apart first by undoing every single one of these screws. It's a bit of a pain, but fortunately, deep cleaning is not necessary very often. And the Saiga-12, as always, is very reliable with that high brass ammunition. I feel like the stock has many more positives than negatives. And for now, for me personally, it's the best thing I've come across for the Saiga-12. I was pleasantly surprised with the ergonomics of the Kushnapup. I far preferred over the stock Saiga. The design with that pistol grip and solid front grip allows for excellent recoil control and fast transitions. Yeah, you still have to deal with the right side charging and the safety, plus the lack of a last round bolt hold open, but anyone versed with an AK will love it. The arch nemesis of the Saiga-12 is the loathsome low brass. I'm talking your cheap Walmart Federal or Winchester junk. The Saiga is just not designed to fire these low powered shells. It's meant to run hard with a full charge. Now there's plenty of videos out there, all sorts of workarounds for this. Alternate gas pucks, gas knobs, recoil springs, guide rods, etc. But the ultimate method of getting your Saiga running smooth is to polish the bolt and carrier. Now this is a bit of a sore spot for me, I'll tell you why. To begin, I did all the basic stuff like I said. I swapped out that gas puck, cleaned out the gas ports and tube, swapped my gas selector for the TAC-47 auto plug, which is great if you're going to be shooting low and high brass shells because it regulates that gas automatically. Did all that, but then things got ugly. I wanted a beautiful, professional bolt and carrier polishing job. I shipped those off along with the hammer, axis pin, springs, blah blah blah, all that stuff. I sent them all to Pauly's Steel and Custom Fabrication. I had read all sorts of reviews on him, and he was supposed to be the best. I ordered up what he called the ice rack and glass bolt modifications, along with an upturned charging handle. It was supposed to take a couple weeks, and then I'd get back my beautiful mirror-like polished bolt and carrier. Long story short, the dipstick took my $300 and kept my parts for over 2 years before the Oregon DOJ got involved. They seized my parts, finally shipped them back to me completely unfinished. The dude stole my money. He stole part of my soul, man. And one of my guns was helplessly out of commission for all that time. Now, I heard he went through a bout with alcoholism and some other personal problems. Regardless, I'm not sure if he still advertises or is in any kind of business whatsoever, but avoid him like the plague. So after all that, I wasn't about to pay more money and wait to send my parts off somewhere else. Again, I pulled out my trusty Dremel and went to work on the carrier, bolt, and rails. It didn't turn out as pretty as it would have been with a professional, but it now cycles low brass just fine, and overall I was pleased with how it turned out. Now I think I might need to go back and touch up my bolt just a little bit. I've noticed that occasionally I get a stovepipe on the very last round. It's not a big deal because at that point I'm changing a mag and racking the slide anyway, but it's an indicator to me that things aren't quite perfect yet. Now again, your Saiga, it's already going to be reliable out of the box with your self-defense ammunition, so none of this is truly necessary. It's just hard to front that cost to shoot the nice stuff for all your buddies when you're out at the range. Another common issue that people have is that mags can be near impossible to load on a closed bolt. It's required that you hold or lock the bolt back for a mag change. I was able to solve this by carefully removing some material from the bottom of the bolt while I was polishing it. Now all of my mags load like butter on a closed bolt. Another thing, because of the tight fit and the inherent plasticity of shotgun shells, you might see some deformation of the shell under the bolt if you're storing them loaded. Some guys have said that the top shells even deform to a degree in magazines kept outside of the gun. With that extra space that I created when I modified my bolt, this hasn't been an issue at all. I still see some mild indentation on the shells after months of storage, but not enough to keep the shotgun from cycling by any means. If you don't want to mod your bolt and you're still worried about this, a nice workaround is to store your gun with the mag inserted, but the bolt locked back. This is real easy if you have that manual bolt hold open catch, but even if you don't have this, you can always notch your safety to keep the bolt back. Then, should the need arise, just pull on your bolt or drop that safety and you're good to go with minimal shell deformation. Another option might be using some all brass or all steel holes for the top round of the magazine. I haven't tried that, but I imagine that could work well. Now the Saiga is definitely meant to be a meat grinder, but it can be a lot of fun for shooting clays too. It's not threaded for screw-in chokes, but then again, cylinder or improved cylinder are ideal for home defense anyway. I definitely wouldn't take this gun to your local skeet match, but for pure enjoyment, this thing is a blast, literally. Just don't let those clays get too far away or your chances of hitting it are going to be pretty low. The advantages of having a magazine-fed shotgun are substantial. The ability to quickly swap out a full mag of various ammunition types is very advantageous. Sure, a pump action will allow for the widest variety of shells, but for buckshot and slugs, this is hard to top. In the end, I do usually hesitate a little bit to drastically alter my firearm, especially if it's something I plan to use potentially in self-defense. In this case though, I don't feel like the stock greatly changes the functionality of the gun. It's still a reliable AK style shotgun at its heart. The stock sporterized Saiga gives you a great reliable home defense shotgun. The catalog of accessories and the extensive history that it has makes it one of the very best. But if you want to burn through some bulk ammunition and clays, you will definitely need some upgrades. And if you want something that will truly stand out and enable some unique abilities, the Kushnapup stock will make you proud.
Okay.
Yeah!
That's fun.
Got him!